Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Zander. Today I'll be going over a little insight on movement in Valorant. Now, when I say movement, this isn't going to be a long, in-depth guide on little things such as jump spotting or agent-related movements such as race tackles. This movement guide is going to relate more to how and when to counter strafe, as well as strafing movements, the importance of crouching, angle clearing, and fight taking. I'll even go over more than just movement tips and explain some random Valorant fundamentals. I'll make sure to try to hit all audiences, with the earlier part of the video being for beginners, and to explain some shooting mechanics, and we'll discuss things that could be a little more advanced later. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Well, there's obviously many different concepts in Valorant, and it's important to understand all of them. Two important ones are agent and map knowledge. The way I view things is that the more you understand these concepts in advanced ways, the easier it will be for you to play the game. For example, understanding agent abilities in a more in-depth way than the next player would most likely give you an advantage. An example of this may be an unimportant one, but a phase seized combo with a breach aftershock can kill you instantly if done correctly.
Looks like it actually caught on to Dante as he was ahead of the curve. My goodness!
Yep. Now, another important concept, and probably the most enjoyable part for anyone that plays this game, is the shooting mechanics. The game is an FPS game at the end of the day, and shooting the enemy team is the point of the game. Shooting mechanics can range from spray transferring, micro flicks, and how to use the ADS efficiently. But something Valorant and all FPS games don't have in common is the movement mechanics. Comboing your movement mechanics with your shooting mechanics is very important in Valorant. Now, at the end of the day, remember, it's a FPS game. I'm going to repeat this a lot. If the enemies shoot you in the head faster than you can shoot them, you probably will lose. This applies especially at higher ranks where people are very skilled and are able to simply hit heads a lot quicker than lower ranks. Okay, let me go over the very basics. What is counter strafing? Counter strafing is a technique to stop your movement quickly. Using this, you can shoot when you counter strafe, which allows your gun to shoot more precisely when done correctly. What you're going to do is quickly tap the opposite key D for right strafe and A for left strafe just before you shoot. This will again stop your character's movement instantly, but still allow you to be accurate. If you are not good at this immediately, that's normal. That is what practice is for. Using this technique, you need to practice going left and right, all while being accurate when shooting. Counter strafing is, in my opinion, essential to learn if you want to achieve a high rank in Valorant. This alone will improve your gunplay immensely if you get it done and master it. I highly recommend standing in the range and shooting at a wall consistently until you are extremely accurate. After that, you can try shooting at different targets in the range, and then eventually you can hop into a deathmatch and try against players. Unlike many other FPS games, Valorant is one of the few that highly depend on the gun bursting mechanics. Games like CS2, previously known as CSGO, is probably the closest thing to Valorant, which highly depend on the gun spraying mechanics. Spraying can be effective in Valorant, but it depends on the situation you're in.
On everything, that's bad.
Each gun in Valorant has a unique spray pattern that becomes randomized horizontally after spraying for too long. It can be very inaccurate because of this, especially with the weapon you are using. Spraying is and may always be very situational. We will get into what makes spraying situational soon, but let's go over bursting first. I would say bursting is the most optimal way to take majority of your gunfights in Valorant. You'll see every single Valorant pro move after every burst they fire, and very uncommonly commit to a spray. This allows you to become more mobile in comparison. Being mobile in this game not only makes you a harder target to hit, but you aren't committing yourself to a gunfight like spraying does. It allows you to adjust if needed, which will increase your chances of winning the gunfight. The incentive to burst over tap in many situations, in my opinion, is because of bullet tagging. And because bursting in this game is just simply very accurate. Bullet tagging is when a player is hit by a bullet, they are tagged, which reduces their movement speed temporarily. If you do end up tagging a person twice, you can now happily commit to a spray, knowing they will be slowed and you only have to hit them 2 more times to kill them. This is one example of adjusting mid-gunfight. In my opinion, you should be bursting in close to 70% of your fights, and those were only a few reasons why. Well, if I should be bursting around 70% of the time in my gunfights, when do we burst and when do we spray? Well, I would mostly say that depends on the distance. There's a lot of information to unpack here, so stay with me. Many people understand that distance matters in a lot of ways. Overall, long distance fights are a lot different than medium to short range fights. Of course, it'll be harder to hit the enemy from a further range. This is where I'd recommend bursting or even tapping between each counter strafe. This again will make your movement more sporadic and you become an even harder target to hit. The second reason is spraying at a target that is this far away from you is very difficult. If any player commits to spraying at you from this distance, I'm confident you will win the fight if you counter strafe after each burst, since they are making themselves an easier target to hit. Now what about short to medium range fights? If we are going strictly off of distance alone, I believe that spraying in short to medium range gunfights, especially short range, is completely fine. I still believe that majority of the time it will be more optimal to burst in medium range fights, but you'll see me spraying a good amount while fighting in these distances. Why is this? The reason for this is because there's a lot more context to be added to the gunfight other than just distance. Examples of this: are you or will you be exposed to another target? Is there a utility that is coming or will come? Are you behind a spammable box or wall of some sort? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you again most likely want to be counter strafing and bursting a lot more than committing to a spray. This all matters in the grand scheme of things, and unfortunately I can't go over every single situation possible. It really can become endless, and that is why time and experience playing the game will sharpen your instincts to make your gunfights more optimal. Most pros instinctually make decisions and actually rarely have time to think them through in the moment. The more important thing to look into is using your movement to aim. Take the time in these long distance fights to almost strafe your crosshair into the opponent's head. You don't always need to hard microflick to the opponent's head and try to kill them. Allow your strafing and movement to help you. This is a very important skill that top pros have, and it is very important to implement this. Strafing wider in these long distance fights will give me those extra milliseconds to microflick more accurately instead of trying to finish the kill too fast. This is a large mistake made by most Valorant players at any rank. If people would just take the time to hit the harder shots, the more often they would get the kill. I've gone over some basics that people will need to understand to continue throughout this video. Now to get a little more advanced on how I think, I overall want to make it as hard as possible for me to get shot by the enemy. I think one of my strengths and something that people can get really good at in this game is being able to read their opponent's movements. If you pay attention to their movement patterns and how they are either peeking, jiggling, and especially strafing, you can prepare for it and be one step ahead. And you should be thinking from a personal standpoint, how can I make myself harder to hit? There are many ways to make yourself harder to hit, and here are 3 of them. The first topic this ties into is using your W key. Something I see a lot at low ranks is how often the players hold their W key. Of course, there are going to be situations where you need to enter a bomb site or quickly get around a corner to trade your teammates. What's important to understand is that consistently using your W with your A plus D keys when taking fights and peeking angles can be very bad. The reason for this is because you are moving diagonally, which causes the opponents to have an easier shot on you once you turn a corner. This is an example of what that difference looks like. This is a really important concept and something to be focused on if you find yourself doing too much. Peeking angles and corners with only A or D causes your model to be harder to hit because it makes you quicker in comparison. It's also important to understand that when you are moving diagonally, when an enemy peeks you, you will need to reactively sidestep. The reason for this is because your model will most likely be coming towards them and you will need to quickly move your head off the original position that they will microflick to. We see this a lot at high levels in pro play, where players will purposely peek players moving forward with their W key, usually off sound. You hear it all the time from top level players as well, take favorable fights. Well, this is one example of a favorable fight. The second topic is something I do in some situations that help me a lot, not only to get behind cover, but to mess with the opponent. We've spoken previously about counter strafing and how we should be strafing left to right while shooting. That's not the only way you have to counter strafe. To take the same example in Breeze window, what if we had info that a player is or could be an elbow? Instead of strafing left to right, we can continuously strafe in one direction to move out of the possibly bad position where you're in. We don't necessarily have to do this because we are afraid of the enemy trading us from elbow, but this can also throw off the opponent harder than usual. Most players expect you to do the standard back and forth, left and right strafing. And remember to still give yourself that extra space to cover before firing your shots, because you still want to make yourself harder to hit. To do this, you simply want to strafe in one direction, in this instance D, tap your opposite key and shoot at the same time, and instantly hold down your D key again and repeat. This is a skill that can be used in many situations that can throw off your opponents, which can net you a free kill. The third topic that I've applied a lot more over the last 2 years is crouching. You may have saw a video made by Dopai, who inspired me to actually create this video. Shout out to him. In this video, he took a look at Premi's movement, who includes a lot of crouching during his gunfights. Dopai explains this in his video, but the reason the crouching he does is so good is because it takes Premi's head off the usual head level position. At high ranks, everyone understands that crosshair placement is extremely important. If you constantly have your crosshair at head level, and all of a sudden you are fighting someone that feels like he's constantly ducking your bullets, it can get annoying. Here's some footage of me trying to crouch constantly during my gunfights, and I find it very difficult to apply. There's little to nobody who actually does this consistently during the gunfights other than Primi. It's important to note that when I say crouching, I'm a big believer that fully crouching all the way is very bad. What you actually want to do is tap the crouch key instead of holding it for too long. This way you don't lose your mobility fully. It's also important to understand that overusing crouching and or doing it in certain situations can be bad. So when should I crouch? Let me show you one example. The way I use it, which is commonly used by other pros, is to clear angles. What you want to do before you clear an angle is visualize where your crosshair will be after putting it into a wall. Make sure your crosshair placement would be at head level when peeking the angle to get the best chance at a headshot. This is of course what pre-aiming is. In this example, I will be clearing all the angles on a site. It's an elevation change on this bomb site, so it can be very difficult if someone is either standing in the middle of heaven or on a different type of off angle like top generator. I am going to slowly peek every single angle precisely and try not to overstep. Overstepping your peek may expose you to an angle or a position that you do not want to be exposed to. This can be applied at any point you want to peek an angle. This works especially better if you are playing a slow round and playing to contact. I would recommend you try it and give it a go, as it's been effective for me. It's important to not make crouching a bad habit though, as I do believe if you overuse crouching in different ways, such as actually committing to a crouch spray, it can be very bad. Everything has trade-offs, and that's important to understand. Applying everything I've mentioned in this video can help improve your game immensely. I hope you guys were able to learn a thing or two from this video. In all honesty, there is a bit more I could get into, such as jump spotting optimally or jiggling, but I didn't want to make the video too long. But that will be the end of this video, and if you guys want another video like this and or shorts that provide more tips, please like, subscribe, and comment. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you made it to the end, thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Peace, 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 peace.